faith stories.
My now wife Chelsea was like, "Hey, you're coming to church with me on Sunday," and I was like, "All right, I've been looking at the Bible. Let's do this."
Fishing memories.
When I first started, I was just fish, focus on the fish. And I see the kid catch a fish. I'm like, good job, perfect, awesome. And then he goes up there and I'm like, we're catching slot snook. And this kid's up here going, oh, the breeze. I'm like, this is exactly what it's about.
Meaningful conversations.
You have to stay in the Word. You have to have a good support system. You have to know what the end goal is. You have to know who God is.
Positivity. This is the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Your hosts, Cam Steele.
If your identity is you're an angler, whenever you're not doing well in the water, that's whenever you can't be content.
And Robert Randolph.
And his timing is perfect. We might not always agree with it, and we might not always understand it at the moment.
Bring you interviews with some amazing guests from the fishing community and discuss all things to do with fishing and their faith. Welcome to the family.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we're coming off two really good episodes, going into another awesome episode for y'all, especially y'all fellow podcast junkies out there. So we will jump into that in just a second. But first, Robert, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. In 2024 is shaping up to be a good season of shows, and I know that you're going to have some life things going on later on in the year. So I don't know what I'm going to do to try to follow up this first little bit of shows that we have. So it's kind of got me a little nervous.
Oh man, you will do great. I know you will. I have all the faith in the world in your ability. I will say, last episode with Ben Ricks, I mentioned the new Carolina Waters hoodie, and if you're on YouTube, this thing is not only does it look awesome, but man, is it comfortable and that awesome performance material. So definitely go check that out. CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use code STEEL15, get you a little bit off of that. But yeah, and speaking of discount codes, we're blessed to have relationships with some really awesome companies. And if you are someone who I'm going to use that promo code, I'm interested in that stuff, and then by the end of the episode you completely forget, kind of like I do, then head on over to our YouTube channel and just watch our end credits, because we have all of that information scrolling, all the websites, all the promo codes, all of the company names, all that good stuff. So go check that out.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm always, usually if I'm listening to a podcast, I'm driving or I'm working. Yeah, the air quotes for everybody that's listening and not watching. But and then by the time, if I'm driving or whatever, I'm like, oh man. And then, you go, a week down the road and I go to order something and I'm like, I know Alex Rudd has a promo code for this. And then I go try to find it, and I never can find it. But I know the people that have the codes because I listen to the podcast, but I never can find it. And when I saw those roll on the credits, I was like, oh man, we need to make sure everybody knows that all of the discount codes are at the end rolling on the credits. So hopefully that'll help some people out, save some bucks.
Absolutely. And if you are someone you just want to know how to support the podcast, that is probably the best way to support us, is using the promo codes that we give you, because that tells our sponsors that our listeners are, they are getting a return on their investment from us. So that's a great way to help out the podcast. Robert, did you this is a silly question. Did you get any fishing since the last episode?
Nah, no fishing. Everything is super cold. this week, and it's windy, cold. I think a couple of days it's not going to get above freezing. So the lowest temperatures we've had in North Carolina in a couple of years, probably. There's no snow or ice as there is in Tennessee. A lot of Tennessee guys get pretty good snow coverage, but there's no snow here. But it's really cold, so I didn't get to do any fishing. I did go to the Raleigh fishing expo and walked around and saw a couple people and rubbed some elbows, shook some hands, and it was pretty good show. So stopped by the caching booth and one cache booth and talked to those guys, and then saw our guest from last week and Better Fishing with Two Bald Biologists. So stopped by and talked to those guys for a while. I didn't see the Carolina Waters booth, and I had it in my head to stop, and then kind of was running short on time and had somewhere to be, and I never. I guess their booth was maybe around some corner I didn't go. I thought I went around everywhere, and then when I left, I was like, "Oh, dang, gone!" I didn't stop by and see those guys, but the hoodie looks nice. So it turned out to be a good show, and from what I heard, all of the vendors were super happy about the turnout. The numbers were up, and there was one guy that had kayaks, and he said he sold all of his higher end kayaks on Friday. He was like, "Man, the first 4 or 5 hours they wiped me out." So that's just he had some left, but not a lot, and they were all the paddle type kayaks that you would be interested in, and all the pedal kayaks sold on Friday, he said.
Well, speaking of, I do have some news in that front. So I am now the proud owner of a feel-free Moken 12.5 version 2 that I am just itching to get out and get the feel of and start modding out. And I've got some sonar pod plans and bunch of stuff that I'm excited to do on that, but just wanted that to be able to stand up. Hopefully by the end of the year I'm standing up and fishing, and if nothing else, it's a good opportunity for some content for the clumsy kayak angler. But yeah, I'm excited about that. And just wanted something I can sit up higher, get a better vantage point, easier to get in and out of, and something that it's got a bunch of features that I've been missing for a while on my Perception, and I still love the Perception boat. It paddles great, but there were just a few things about the Moken that is like I've been wanting that for a while, and I got a really good deal on one, and excited to get out on that. But
yeah, that's awesome. I saw a picture of it, and it looks nice. So I'm excited for you.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead, and we are going to thank a sponsor, and then we are going to get this week's guest introduced.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on the water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or visit them online at shopgetoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
Perfect time.
All right, sorry about that. The charger for the laptop had come unplugged from the brick, so I had to.
That's why you need one of these.
Absolutely. See that
There you go.
Naqua power bank.
Yeah, you can just take it anywhere, plug anything in. All those connections on there. Look at all those connections. All different connections, all right in one little nice, neat package right there.
Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So if you've listened to, 3 episodes of this show, you know that Robert and I are podcast junkies. If you love Faith and Fishing podcast, this next guest, his podcast is going to be for you. The Filled Quiver Outdoors podcast is, it's got a lot of similarities to Faith and Fishing in terms of it's outdoors and faith based, but it's not just fishing; it's outdoors altogether. So I am excited to get this guest in here. He's had some phenomenal guests already, so I'm excited to see where he takes it from here. And he's got a little bit of luck on his side too, because he was our winner for the the Faith and Fishing Christmas giveaway last year. But Jody Thibodeau, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us who Jody Thibodeau is.
All right. Well, I am first and foremost a follower of Christ. That's the most important thing, the end all be all. But outside of that, I drive a concrete mixer for my day job that pays the bills. But I've also recently started up Filled Quiver Outdoors, which we can talk a little bit more about the backstory with that in a little while. But originally it was intended to be just a business, like a side hustle. But I really felt led to do more of a ministry with it as well, or have a ministry aspect to witness to the lost. And that's where the podcast comes into play. And I did it backwards of probably what most folks do with their businesses. I did the podcast first before I started the actual selling merchandise and products. But that's pretty much it. I just thoroughly enjoy being outdoors. I don't get a whole lot of time to do that with 5 young kids, but that's also where the backstory with Filled Quiver Outdoors comes in as well. Is I didn't grow up in an outdoors household with sportsmen. Pretty much for me, growing up, if we went fishing, it was to the local pay pond for catfish, or every once in a while we'd go to the lake and catch bluegill. But actually had never caught a largemouth until 2 years ago. And so my kids, all the boys and even the girls now, as they're getting a little bit older, are showing interest in outdoors activities. So again, I've always had the interest. I've just never actually participated in it that much. So effectively what the podcast is and the YouTube channel is me finding out for myself how to do all these different things that my kids want to learn, so I can turn around and teach them, so that other folks that might be in my shoes but just aren't comfortable asking the questions or don't enjoy doing the research like I do, they have a source to go to get the bare bones basics and figure out where to go next.
Absolutely. So you said you kind of did it backwards, but let's kind of start from the origin of Filled Quiver Outdoors, and you just kind of hit on it there. I'm curious, as someone who went through the journey also, from the time that you decided I am going to do this to the time that the first episode dropped, what was that? How long was that process, and what did you go through for that process? Just so maybe we've got a listener who's like, I've got a podcast idea and I want to know how long, like what it's going to take and everything like that. Like for you, your journey in this content creation world, what did it look like for you?
Well, for me, it started out with coming up with the idea for the Filled Quiver Outdoors. And like I said, originally it was just going to be a little side business focused on outdoor themed, like novelty type items, specifically stickers that are, a lot of it is probably even going forward going to be parodies of pop culture outdoor stuff. Like right now I have just a few decals are the main items, but like Swoley Bear Is a play on Smokey Bear, but he's ripped because he works out. Because I've always, or really since college, had an interest in working out, lifting weights. And so I just figured I'd meld the two. But it was actually not even going to have anything to do with the outdoors. It was actually, I'm a big history nerd too. And I've always had an interest in the American Revolution. And originally, because there's a lot of these T-shirt companies out there that make the designs that are patriotic, Revolutionary War themed, but they also have a lot of stuff that it's like, I don't really want to wear something that has that on it, support that, because I don't want to own anything that I don't feel comfortable wearing to church or having on if Jesus were to come back when I'm wearing it. So originally I was going to do designs, Revolutionary War thing, but I really felt led to do a ministry aspect. And then I felt God kind of pushing me more towards outdoor because that's more what the kids were in. And so that was the focus on that. When I decided to do it outdoor themed, that was the point that I really started looking into the podcast, because I knew that was probably going to be the way that I would do the outreach aspect. And I started looking into it. I'm one of those folks, my wife gives me a hard time because if I'm going to do something or if I'm going to buy something, I will research it to death, bring it back to life, research it to death again, and then I might finally pull the trigger on it. But my big thing was finding a web host, finding what platform I was going to use to record and release the episodes through. And then mainly just equipment. But it probably took me, because I was trying to do it in stages and budget it out financially. So initially I purchased what I needed as far as website and basic equipment with a couple of mics and a mixer. And then I'm fortunate enough that I have a good friend that had a whole bunch of sound equipment that was his father's, brand new in the boxes. He said, just go through it, see what you need, get what you need, what you think you'll use, just have it. So I was very blessed and fortunate in that regard. And pretty much I just kind of jumped into it. Last spring was actually when it was supposed to start coming out with episodes with regularity. And I think I did one, and then there was probably about a 3 or 4 week gap, then another one. And then it went a period of time where I was having issues getting guests on and getting content between work and family and church obligations. So I decided just to put it off until I could kind of get a little bit of a catalog going where they would be coming out at least every other week. And then in the fall, about October, was when I actually started releasing content. So from idea to somewhat regular release of content was a good year and a half.
And keep in mind, y'all that are listening, he said he's someone who researches the absolute snot out of stuff. I was not. I mean, for the most part, like I was comfortable with a lot of this stuff because my background, I did live music and live sound and ran sound for bands and stuff all the time, and had a little bit of equipment. But I mean, whenever I first started, I was recording phone calls. So I mean, like from then to now, like being able to see the person on the other end of the conversation makes such a huge difference in terms of not only the tone of it, but just the flow of it and the casualness of it. Like it's the conversational side of it instead of, I don't know about you, but I'm awkward on the telephone. I mean, I'm awkward in person too, but I'm really awkward on a telephone.
Yeah. Well, and then being able to see everybody, you can tell when somebody's about to interject and put a point in. You can see what somebody means by their facial expressions, by their demeanor. And it's so much better than, doing it just via phone, and you can't really tell, and you may not get the most out of that interview, but you can get a lot more out of people if you can see their demeanor. And but on the flip side of it, listening and not watching doesn't bother me at all. Like, I listen to podcasts and don't see the people on there. Very rarely, honestly, do I ever watch a podcast on YouTube. That's just not how I consume that, that type of media, even though everybody now has the video to go along with the podcast. I usually only listen, and it doesn't bother me. But on the flip side, when you're the one that is hosting the podcast and you're able to talk to people, it's so much easier to be able to see them. And then, I think the main reason people record it is the live aspect is, a lot of times they're going to go live on Facebook, and that's why they want to record it. I will do that occasionally on KBN or, Bass Kayak and Beers. If Armando's on and I see it's on, I may flip over there. But I don't know. It's kind of weird to think about that in reverse.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jody, what's been something that's really surprised you about starting this podcast journey, and what's been probably your biggest challenge to overcome?
The challenge, I'm going to go ahead and start with that one. It's probably a two-way tie. Initially, it was getting guests, which still is, just because of work schedule. It's kind of hard trying to schedule when the way our schedules work. Sometimes we have night pours where we have to be in at midnight, and then the next day it might be normal banker type hours. But so planning that ahead and trying to get it where the guest can do the interviews on like a Friday evening or Saturday morning, or sometime when I know in advance, I'll probably be able to do it in the afternoon or early evening. But also, just being able to get the content released on time has been my biggest challenge, because I'm bad about wanting it to be as good as it can be. And I know I still got a long ways to go. I know there are a lot of errors with it. I know there is no such thing as perfection. So I'm just, grasping at straws. But just getting it what I envision to be the best that I'm able to do at that given time, and just being comfortable with getting it out there is probably the biggest challenge. But as far as the other, and then what was that part again?
What's been the biggest surprise to you?
The surprise, I don't know. I'm not been surprised by the cost of it. I knew there were going to be fees incurred. I knew I'd be able to find a lot of free options, which is also part of what's taking me so long to get stuff up, is finding the most budget friendly route. But probably just the outgoingness of the guests that I have had on, and just their willingness to talk openly. And it's so far, it's everybody I've interviewed has been a brother in Christ. And I asked Ott before we started, I was like, now, is there anything that, I probably need to not ask that might get you in trouble with sponsors that you can't answer because of any potential sponsors? He's like, nah, just ask me anything. It'll be all right. So I was honestly, that was probably the biggest surprise, was somebody with sponsors saying, you can ask me anything. I don't really care. So I'll answer it. It's all good.
Awesome. Yeah. Ott Defo and Chris Wells. They've been two of my favorite guests to talk to also. And they've been two of the ones that have stood out so far for y'all. And you got to, that's the great thing about these guys is like, even on two similar podcasts like ours, like two completely different interviews, because, you were talking about the OG series and and everything with Ott, and talked about a lot of different things. And then with Chris, like, you got to talk about his new podcast and everything. That's another podcast, y'all, Bass Chaplain podcast. If you want to listen to like just the faith stories of pro anglers, I've had a bunch of them. Jody's had some, but I mean, it's interesting listening to Chris on his podcast because those are his buddies, and like, it's a completely different dynamic than having somebody like as a guest, and it's your first time ever talking to them and everything. Like, these guys, they can say, tell them about that thing you done did over there at what you call it, and they know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I try to do whenever I have a guest on, is before I do the interview, I try to listen to as many other podcasts that they've been on, so that I'm coming from a different angle, asking them questions that people haven't already heard the answers to.
Absolutely. And I will say about your thing about editing and like being a perfectionist, whenever I first started, I edited the absolute snot out of these episodes. Now, if there's a hum that bothers me, I'll get the hum out. But other than that, I might do some normalizing of levels to make sure that nobody's like way louder than somebody else. But that is it. Other than that, like, the video gets 0 edits before it comes from here to YouTube. It comes straight from here to YouTube.
Yeah, the episode that I'm actually getting ready to drop, that'll be coming out right after we're recording this, but prior to this episode dropping for you guys, I was just going to release it as was, but my little recorder that my mic goes through into the computer, the batteries decided to die mid-interview, so I had to do a little quick repair on that and get some fresh batteries, and I cut that probably about 3 minutes of dead silence, me looking around trying to figure out what's happening and then fixing it. But that's about the only thing I edited out, and it's after editing, I've only done 4 interviews so far, but it's like, nah, I just don't have the time for this. People are going to get what they get, and they'll either watch it or they won't watch it.
If you get sucked into that, it has to be perfect mentality. Like, you can spend so much time on editing and everything. And I did, like, for a long time. Like, now, like, I spend a little bit of time on Tuesday night and it's all uploading. Like, that's about it. But if you do need a free audio like editor, Audacity is about as good as you can get. It's got phenomenal list of features and everything. But I mean, if you're on an Apple, I mean, you can use GarageBand, but don't call it free, because there's a reason that Apple's twice as much as everybody else. All right, Robert, you look like you got a question.
No, I was just going to ask about your new short segment that you started. I think it's called Think About It. And, kind of what led up to that. I think that's a nice, I believe you're doing it on your off weeks, and every other week you're dropping a full episode. And then on your week that you were off, you're having a kind of a quick shot in the arm. And tell us how that came about. And, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. So the concept behind Think About It is when I was in the youth group in church, literally 2 decades ago now, my wife's father was actually our Sunday school teacher, and he would always end each lesson with this phrase: does anybody have any questions, comments, or pondering thoughts? And that's just literally always stuck with me. And he told us where it came from, but I don't even remember now. I guess I need to ask him. But when I first decided to do the podcast, I knew I wanted to have some spiritual aspect to the show, to every episode, if possible. And originally, the Think About It segment was going to end each episode, and it was going to be related somehow or other to the topic of that show, be it if it was like an oral essay that I was presenting on an outdoors topic or an interview with a guest. It would somehow all tie it in and leave the listener with something to think about that would fuel either spiritual growth or outdoors growth, or somehow combine the two. Well, once I started recording and dropping the episodes, my goal is to keep the episodes at a like right at the 1 hour mark or less. If an interview goes long, that's fine. Just break it up into 2 episodes, just because of attention and time constraints. But what I decided to do, because they were all hovering about that hour, even without that, and because of the segment that I end the shows with, which is very similar to the one that you end most of yours with, it's kind of going from a fun, very lighthearted, immediately flipping the switch to a very serious nature. And what I decided to do was, in order to have more content and give me something to do, because I enjoy writing when I have the time, I wanted these to be devotionals, and literally just a devotional that I would present on air. So I decided just to start doing those in my off weeks, do my main show, keep with every other week basis, because that way I'm not getting stressed out, having to come up with content for a full episode every week, but I've got something coming out every week. And I've always wanted to write some sort of a book. And as of now, what I'm looking at doing is, at the end of each season, which for my show runs October through September. Well, once each season ends, I'm going to take the Think About It devotionals that I've produced over that season, publish them into a book for that season, basically have a collection that people can either download for free or have printed copies that folks could buy to help support the show. And the way I'm planning on doing that, I've still got to look at all the details if I even end up doing it as far as selling them. Any profits from those, I'm going to turn around and have basically booklets with 5 of the devotionals in as giveaways. And anybody that orders something from the web store, once I start having more items on there, throw one of the little devotional tracks in, go around to trade shows, have a backpack full of them, hand them out to different vendors, different folks. And I'm actually asking all of my guests who are followers also, if they'd be willing to write a devotional to be included. And I've already got several that have said that they're going to participate for this first collection, and which is really good. And then eventually, over time, once I have enough on a particular topic, just as an example, we'll go with fishing. Once I have enough devotionals that combine fishing with faith, then I might either do a 30 to 45 devotional collection of just fishing related, or maybe do one of the miniature ones, one of the booklets that's just 5 to 7 devotionals that are fishing related as give outs for, say, if I were to go to the East Tennessee Fishing Expo or Red Crest or the Bassmaster Classic. And just have a backpack of them to hand out that are targeting that particular audience. But that's the idea behind Think About It. Now, there will be some that won't be completely serious, I'm sure. But yeah, that's the concept. And the hope is that all, or at least the vast majority, if not all, will be able to somehow combine creation or outdoor recreation with a spiritual concept to either help folks find God and start a relationship with Jesus, or help them grow in their relationship if they're already a follower.
Cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, man. Well, that's a good point to segue into your faith journey and your faith story. So what is it that you believe in, and how did you come to believe that?
Well, I was fortunate that I grew up in a family, in a household of believers that were my parents are both strong Christians. My dad was actually raised Catholic, and then after he and my mother were married, he started going to church with her at a Southern Baptist church, which I've grown up in the Southern Baptist denomination. And basically, the nutshell of what I believe is all based on that Scripture is 100 God breathed, that there's nothing, there are no errors in it. God used men as a tool to write his words, and that any answers that we need as humans on this earth, we can find in Scripture. We might not understand everything in the Bible. I think there are some things in there that we don't necessarily need to understand, but like I said, I grew up in church. I was saved when I was young. I believe it was second grade, or when I gave my life to Christ. And then actually at Camp McCall, which is the Southern Baptist camp here in South Carolina for boys, for the Royal Ambassador Group, I actually rededicated my life there a few years later, and pretty much spent my whole life in church, and actually met my wife in church, and we started out in the youth group together, and then I left for a little while, came back home, started back going to the same church that we'd both grown up in, and then now we're actually at a different church now, but we're there with our kids, and I believe that because of that there were some things that I wanted to do in life that did not pan out for one reason or the other, and that's just led me to believe that if you've committed yourself over to Christ, he's going to put you where he wants you, whether you want to get there or not. And eventually you're going to end up where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. It's like that that comic. It kind of harps on the footprints in the sand poem there for a minute. It's like this guy, like Jesus with his arm around this guy, and he's pointing, he says, "Where you only see one set of footprints is where I carried you." And then he kind of like deadpans and points over the other way. He said, "That long line is where I dragged you kicking and screaming."
That's it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we've got a couple questions that we ask everybody. And so we have not talked a ton of fishing yet. So we'll kind of dive into fishing a little bit with this question. What fishing story or memory means the most to you?
Probably just going to the pay ponds with my dad. Because like I said, we didn't fish a whole lot when I was a kid, but when we did, there's one here in the area where we live called Red Barn. It's actually close to, it's actually a restaurant now, but we'd go there. They have two ponds. We'd go there, and that's where I learned a couple of phrases. Obviously, the one that we all teach our kids is, "You can't catch fish if you're talking," just to get some solitude and some quiet. And then the other one was, "Well, if you're not catching anything, it's because you ain't holding your mouth right." But no, I remember going there, and we'd always anything we caught, we'd take home, and usually we'd clean it, and then Mom would make a stew out of it. But I remember this one time we went out there, and I'm sure you have seen or at least heard of this being done, but the tab off of a Coke can being turned into a fish hook. I actually saw somebody do that, wrap the line around the can, cast it out, and catch catfish that way. Since then, I still have never seen anybody actually catch anything by doing that. But this guy managed to pull it off, and he had probably the biggest one around all of us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen it done, but I've never seen a fish caught on one. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have TMJ now from trying to hold my mouth right, from being told that on my life.
Only people from the South would even know what you're talking about. Like when my dad would say that all the time. Boy, you're not holding your mouth right, and it didn't matter. It could be fishing. It could be anything. And if you weren't getting the results you wanted, it was definitely because you were not holding your mouth right.
Yeah, if it was easy for one person and it was hard for you, it's because you weren't holding your mouth right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep, that's it.
And Jody, you mentioned earlier that 2 years ago, I think it was, that you caught your first largemouth. Got to ask, what'd you catch it on?
It was actually, let me see. I'm looking to see if I still got it over there on the windowsill. Yeah, it was a mouse that I actually got from the Spro booth at the Classic Expo when it was held here in Greenville, Lake Hartwell a couple years ago. And so, yeah, we were just walking around. The kids were collecting all this stuff that was being given away, and we got home, and I immediately seized all of the actual tackle. And the next time I went out to the pond I like to go to, I was like, well, they're hitting a lot of bugs on top. Let me see what this one will do. So I threw it out, and I mean, it wasn't big. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was the first largemouth that I'd ever caught.
Was it the like metallic purple mouse?
No, actually, give me just 1 second. I'll grab it and show it to you.
All right, 10-4. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, it's even better. Like, I went ahead and seized all of the real tackle. It's like, they didn't want to get the hooks in their hands and thinking they were toys and stuff. So that's awesome.
But, yeah, so no, it was, I don't know if, let me see if I can get the camera to focus on this.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah, very natural color.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just not wanting to focus for me. There we go. But yeah, so that was the one.
That's cool.
It's a good size too. A lot of people throw the really big rats, but I like the little ones like that. Yeah.
So and then, like I said, we naturally we had to seize everything so that the kids wouldn't be causing any unnecessary ER visits.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that's one lure that I don't see or hear very much about like now, and it may be more prevalent than what what I'm seeing and hearing. But growing up, we threw a mouse a lot on Kentucky Lake Barkley, and that was something that my dad always had tied on, was a mouse, and it was they were basically like the frogs are now with the tail, just a hollow body, just a little bit different shape than the frog. But, who knows? Anything is skipping across the top of the water. And I think that bass, if that bass is hungry, he's going to hit it.
I don't think the bass stops to ask what it is.
No.
If they'll hit the Z-Man Hellraiser, it doesn't matter what they think it is. That thing looks like
crazy.
Looks like you trying to run on top of the water, man.
Yeah. So, what about the fishing or hunting? Or if you're in the outdoors, what's your normal conversations, or what may be a conversation you'd strike up with? It could be with your kids or somebody else that you're hunting or fishing with.
Well, normally I'm a little bit of a loner. But usually if we're out, I'll just go with the kids as an example, because we go to my sister-in-law's pond a good bit to take them fishing. And I guess with them, it's about two things. It's about patience, because I need it with 5 of them all throwing hooks at the same time, and they get real frustrated really easily when they're not catching anything as quickly as they feel they should, because they've got spoiled on that pond. I mean, there's absolutely no pressure on the bluegills. You literally, we've caught them with nothing on a hook before that they would come up and bite the hook. And but about like, look, if you get frustrated, just put it down, walk around, go explore, see what you can find. See if you can find a turtle, see if you can find a frog, explore something else, and then come back to it. Take a couple deep breaths, forget about how mad you are right now that you're not catching anything, and then come back and pick it up. Or usually we'll try, and with the kids, we try to relate it back again to God, and it being His creation, and how it's our responsibility to take care of it. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people will go to the extreme with that, to the where you're forgoing taking care of the humans and putting more priority on the animals. But finding that happy balance as much as possible anyway.
Absolutely. Well, I believe it is time, sir, to go into our segment, now powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. If you were wondering, I don't know if we said it earlier, the power bank that Robert was holding up, and if you were listening and didn't get to see the logo on it, that was from Nakwa. He's holding it up again now. So that is the power bank with this what's it called, the stash pack on it, the protective cover. That's the USB external charger. They've got the batteries, they've got lighting, they've got all the connectors that you could ever need. I am really looking forward to teaming up with them for that sonar pod modification on the Moken. But yeah, let's get started on what's your favorite.
It's time for What's Your Favorite, powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. Power that fits in the palm of your hand.
And fun tidbit, if you are somebody who likes the little behind the scenes stuff, that piece of music right there is the first solo piece of music that I've ever recorded. So that was me on the piano, and me playing drums on the piano and playing my bass. So I've recorded a lot of music on bass, but that's my first solo piece. So it had to be that length because I sped up so much in the by the end of it that if I tried to loop it, it sounded like all of a sudden I hit the brakes and slowed way down. But yeah, so let's get this started. Robert, you want to start us off, man?
Yeah. What's your favorite scripture?
All right, favorite scripture is probably 2 Samuel 23:20, where it's talking about Benaiah, specifically where he goes down into the pit on a snowy day intentionally to fight a lion.
Absolutely. All right, so this may end up being the same answer, but your favorite Bible story?
Yeah, it's probably definitely the story of Benaiah, even though it's only a few verses in Scripture. But I'm going to say it's a tie between that and God describing to Job Behemoth and Leviathan. These two massive beings that He created. And then like with Leviathan, that, man, you can't do anything with it, but I don't have any trouble killing him if I needed to, or taming him myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. We'll switch it up and go a little bit of fishing. What's your favorite fish to catch?
Probably the Bartram's bass. I've only caught 2, but hands down Bartram's bass.
Okay. Awesome.
Now, I've studied fish since I was, 2 years old. What is a Bartram's bass?
Okay, so a Bartram's bass is actually native here in upstate South Carolina. It is one of the red-eye bass species, and it's actually one of the 4 that the DNR includes on their Black Bass Slam Challenge list. And they're small; they don't get large. 12 inch is considered a trophy for it.
Okay.
So, and there you usually find them up in trout streams up in the mountains is the best place to find them.
Okay. And Bartram's bass.
Yep, Bartram's bass.
Okay. That's
add that to your bucket list there.
yeah, for sure. That'll put a nice mark on the life list for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right. So Bartram's bass is your favorite to catch. What's your favorite fish to fish for?
Probably the same. Just because I'm getting into fly fishing, and that's probably the easiest, best way I know of to target them.
For sure. So are they pretty abundant in a particular river system, or is it like how big is their range and how common are they?
I don't want to misspeak. The ones I caught was in the Chattooga River, and I believe they're in the Chalga as well. But the state record for red-eye bass, they think is actually a hybrid with one, because it's just way too big to be a Bartram's, because they average about an inch per year of life, and they very rarely get over that 12-inch mark. But I was fortunate. I took a class that DNR hosted last summer where they taught you how to target them, about the Bartram specifically, as well as the other red-eye bass species that are mostly in Alabama. But which that caused me to add several more future trips to my bucket list. But they're all gorgeous fish, and but with them crossing and then other species being introduced, they're kind of getting pushed out, and then with water issues, with water quality, and then even with the trout, because rainbow and brown trout being introduced, since they're not native here, just the brook trout being the only one native to the area. It's the habitat loss and all, but they're fairly easy to catch. And there's actually the Chattooga River Fly Shop. They actually offer guides specifically for the Bartram's bass, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Heck yeah.
And what about favorite fish to eat?
That was going to be catfish. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. How do you like your catfish cooked?
I'll eat it fried, but if I really had the choice, it'd be in a stew. Good catfish stew.
There you go. I don't think we've had a stew yet on that question. So that's what I'm talking about. I do like a good fish stew, and catfish is a good fish for fish stew.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
You will never. I don't think now. From everybody I've ever met from Middle Tennessee, I have never heard of anybody put a fish in a stew. We fry everything. It does not matter. The first choice is frying. The only reason you wouldn't fry something is because you ran out of breading and you didn't want to go to the store. That's it.
Now, I will say, if I'm being from Eastern North Carolina, yeah, we will fry absolutely anything that you give us, but we will also turn around and put that same thing in a stew. And we are not afraid to turn around and put all of it in the same stew. We you just want to call it seafood stew and have fish and shrimp and everything in it. That's fine with us.
See, we're in perfect stew weather right now. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Being in the teens and low 20s this week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, man. So Now that I'm craving fish stew, what's your favorite fishing snack?
Okay. This one, and I always have to explain what this is, but stand-up weenies. You know what stand-up weenies are?
I
Yeah,
do.
Vienna sausage.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
See, I have to explain it to people from here, and you guys know what it is.
I know exactly what it is, but I'm not going to eat one.
Oh no, that's
it is not for me.
yeah. Well, we always had that. That is one thing that was always on the boat was Vienna sausages, and usually a pack of crackers. And
Yep.
that was a staple.
I mean, to me, Vienna sausages are bait. That's catfish bait. You take and you run your bait needle through it and pull the treble hook through and tie it and everything. And
that's only if you run out of the chicken livers.
But I will say one of my dad and I, one of our favorite fishing things was watching the Bill Dance bloopers, and he always had the blooper specials, and one of them was, whenever you open the Vienna sausages, the first thing you do is you drain them out. He opened the Vienna sausages and poured them out in the lake and tried to get them off the
water. Let's see, what do we got? Favorite body of water to fish?
That one's actually a little small pond here near where I live called Boyd's Mill Pond. And they have a limit on the motor size that you can have in it, and which I usually go out in the kayak or the canoe. But if you don't have a mud motor most of the year, you're not getting too far from the boat launch anyway. So, because I actually got stuck last year and I haven't been back since, but I took my boy out in the John boat and we got stuck, and I ended up measuring it once we got back, but I actually had to get out and pull the boat for about probably a quarter mile because it was so shallow.
All right. So a couple questions. First, whenever you say mill pond, does that, I don't know, in South Carolina, does that mean the same thing as it does in North Carolina, where that's typically like a cypress swamp?
No, it's just the name of it. And I haven't looked the history into it, but it almost makes me wonder if there used to be an old mill there.
Oh, I'm sure there was.
Yeah. And, but the dam on it, actually, I think I've heard some rumors that they're getting ready to drain it so that they can do some work on the dam. But I was actually talking to a guy at work the other day, and he said he doesn't typically go in the pond itself. He usually goes down the river, and he's caught his largest bass there. And I'm on probably be kicking myself for saying this on here, but I have heard that it's been said by some of the DNR scientists that have gone out there to do the electrolysis studies that they fully expect the next state record for largemouth in South Carolina to come out of Boyd's Mill.
Wow.
So
big statement.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to have a canoe or a kayak really to access it.
Awesome. Yeah. I cut my teeth on a mill pond called Tull's Mill Pond in Deep Run, North Carolina, in terms of kayak fishing. Okay. And so it had been destroyed by Floyd. Hurricane Floyd came through, blew the dam up, and he got some state help to rebuild the dam, and it had been filled back up like not that long whenever I started fishing it, and it was, it very much a cypress swamp and had abundance of species and everything. There were some big bass in there, but they were few and far between. And then Hurricane Matthew came through and absolutely destroyed it. So Tull's Mill Pond doesn't exist anymore. It looked like somebody threw a hand grenade into the dam, and he was told he couldn't get any more help to rebuild it, so he had to close it up. But that I wanted to ask, what kind of kayak are you fishing out of?
Right now it's just one of those Walmart specials. That I was talking to my uncle one time about getting one, And he said, well, I don't use mine anymore because of my shoulder. I'll just bring it to you the next time I'm down. You can just have it, save you some money. So I said, oh, okay.
That's
I'm
the
not
best
gonna
kind.
buy a free kayak.
Yeah, that's the best kind.
Absolutely. Well, am I up? I am up. All right. What is your favorite lure to throw?
I'm going to say right now with getting into the fly fishing is probably the Sam's One Bug. Just because that's what I caught the Bartram's on, because I tied it myself, and just having so many jump at it that I missed the sets on. But yeah, probably the Sam's One Bug right now.
Okay, now I am but a humble conventional fisherman, so explain to me what a Sam One Bug is.
All right, so the Sam's One Bug was developed by a guy named Sam Blevin a while back, and if you can hear his son Wade Blevins tell the story, it's an amazing story behind it, and hopefully we'll be able to work out having him on my show at some point to tell it. But you can listen to he's been on several other podcasts telling it. But basically, it's a foam body, and it sits on the water. And the way I fished it was I just cast it out and just let it do a dead drift. And they the way I understand it, it's a lot of folks believe that it's the legs, just the the 4 legs on it on the water is what is the big giveaway for that particular bug. But it's pretty much just some marabou on the back, the foam body, a little bit of Gorilla Glue, and a hook. And like I said, I've only tied it once or twice, but and that was a year ago. But it's a very simple, basic lure, but it gets the job done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something special about catching a fish on, like tricking a fish into biting something that you made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And what about your favorite time of year? What's your favorite time of year to fish?
Probably autumn. It's just my favorite time of the year in general, but just being out on the water and getting so distracted by the leaves changing and the temperature is just spot on perfect usually. Even here in upstate South Carolina, when one day it might be 30 and the next day it's 80, but yeah, definitely autumn.
Cool.
And we are probably upwards of 90 episodes in, and have asked that question probably 70 times, and I don't know, probably let's say probably 40 of them would probably say fall, but out of those 40, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody on this podcast say autumn.
Yeah, now you have. So there you go.
That is awesome.
All
right.
This way, my wife claims that I'm an intellectual, and I have a bad habit of watching a bunch of old British sitcoms, so that's probably where that comes from.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Awesome. Well, we are going to start wrapping things up, man. Go ahead and let us know, what do you have coming up next for you and for Filled Quiver Outdoors?
Coming up next is just some more interviews. I've got a couple more lined up. I've got one great one that's actually, by the time this episode drops, would have just come out. But I'm working on the first quest, which is what I'm calling them, that'll be released on the website with explanations through one of the episodes. But basically what that's going to be is it's going to involve, think of it like earning a merit badge for Boy Scouts, but something you can do at home on your own or with your kids. But it's going to involve learning and actually participating in some sort of an outdoor activity to increase your knowledge and outdoor skill sets. But it's also going to have a memory verse that's applicable as well for you to learn. that first one's going to be coming out hopefully by early March. And you just get some more stuff dropped on the website for sale. Actually turn it into a business, since that's what it was supposed to have been from the get-go. But yeah, just keep it rolling, and just keep using it as a witnessing tool with the podcast and the YouTube channel.
Absolutely. And what about, social media and website? You've mentioned the website a couple of times. Plug that. Tell us where to find you. Tell us how to listen to the podcast. All that good stuff. Just kind of tell us where we can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So the website is filledquiveroutdoors.com, and you can go there. I've got links about the gospel fly, information about it. Which actually, I guess I should have mentioned that in the last question, but that's actually, I'm working, about to start working with a guy that I just interviewed, who's also an artist, to come up with a modernized version of the gospel fly, which is a witnessing tool that is basically the wordless book, or the little beaded witness bracelets, those colors incorporated into a fishing fly. And so I've done a full episode on the history of that. Folks can listen to the podcast. They can listen to on pretty much any podcast streaming service. If there's one that folks use that the show's not on, they can send me an email, Jody at filledquiveroutdoors.com. Let me know, and I'll try and figure out how to get it added on to that source. But YouTube is Filled Quiver Outdoors. Now, there is another channel that is very similar in name to mine, but because they have so much more content, even though I don't think they've posted anything in a few years, mine's a little bit harder to find. But they can go to the website and link through there to get to the YouTube channel. And then social media, I have Twitter. I don't really use it that much, but Instagram and Facebook are the two main ones. And then both of those, you can just look up at Filled Quivers Outdoors.
Awesome. And I wanted to give you an open floor to, shout out sponsors, supporters, anybody you wanted to say thank you. The floor is yours. Yeah.
So I don't have any sponsors for the show. Haven't really pursued that at this point. If something falls in my lap, we'll see. But as of now, it's just been an out-of-pocket thing, which is why I'm trying so hard to get more stuff up on the website for sale to kind of help offset the out-of-pocket cost. But at this point, just big shout out just to the folks that have allowed me to interview them for the show. And I know you guys, I'm going to have you guys on there and pick y'all's brain here before too much longer. But there's a guy in California named Rocky Bemis. He's the one that actually developed the gospel fly, came up with the design and all. And I was actually trying to find this particular fly because I had seen it about a year prior online, trying to get one of these lapel pins for my son for his birthday present last year. Sent him an email, stumbled across his old website, sent him an email, and nutshell of the conversation, he didn't know the website was still active. And I told him what I was doing with Filled Quiver, what the goal of it was. And just asked him if he minded if I kind of used the gospel fly's design a little bit, maybe tweaked it some, modernized it. And basically what he said was, no, look, I've been praying for this for a while, for somebody that wants to use it for the witnessing purposes to share the gospel. You do whatever you feel is appropriate with it, and I'm just going to send you everything that I've currently got. So I've got a bunch of lapel pins that I'm selling on the website, and I've come up with some trading cards that are effectively tracks. They have the gospel fly on the front, and then on the back they have what each color represents with a scripture reference and a little QR code that folks can scan to go to the website to learn how to become a Christian. But anybody that's wanting to support the show, the main thing I asked for with the show in terms of support is prayer. But if anybody wants to support it financially, I'm not going to turn them down. They can go to fieldquiveroutdoors.com, buy some of the stickers, buy from some of the gospel fly stuff, or they can even just make a donation there on the website. That'll go into if it's a donation, it'll go strictly to the podcast or being able to give away these gospel fly tracks or stickers.
Awesome. Well, Jody, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This has been another great one. 2024 is starting out on an awesome foot, and I look forward to getting a chance to come on your show sometime and enjoying being on the other side of the mic.
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Robert, that was another fantastic episode. And what were your thoughts, man?
Yeah, it's always good to have. We always love having other podcasters on. They're easy to talk to. They keep the conversation going, and I think his take on things, and what he's doing it's pretty awesome. I listen to some of his shows, and I think he speaks well. His voice is good, and he carries on a good conversation. And I've enjoyed the podcast on the ones that he's put out that I've listened to. Really good. So I think that was a good third episode for the season. So you're right. We're on a roll.
Absolutely. And I wanted to end it on a note that was just kind of throwing it back to the end of last season. Today I was having a little bit of a day. Work was crazy. Came home, it was crazy. I was doing dishes, and normally I try to do dishes after Henry goes to sleep. But I was like, there's just a lot of dishes, and I don't want Caitlin to end up having to do all these dishes that I made a mess fixing dinner, and was starting to get the grumbles a little bit. And I thought back to whenever we had Alex on talking about positivity and just finding the positivity. And I stopped and I was listening to my wife play with my son and listening to her go overboard and him giggling and everything. And I was like, and my mood immediately changed from, I've got all this mess to clean up. I've had such a long day. I'm done with this, to she is such an awesome mother. That is such an awesome kid. And immediately, my whole mood changed because it went from finding the negativity to finding the positivity. So just wanted to kind of share that little tidbit from my life of, just that putting that episode into practice.
Yeah, it is good. We all have to stop every once in a while and really look around and, be thankful for the positive things that are in our life. And a lot of times you just have to stop and look around and take yourself out of the everyday things that we have to do and the crazy schedules that we all put ourselves into, going from one thing to the next, and to stop and just take in some small moments like that can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Well, Robert, you want to close us out in prayer, man?
Sure, man. Dear Lord in heaven, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to have Jody on to share his testimony and share his faith journey and his journey with Filled Quiver. Please watch over that and bless his show and all the things that he's doing. Give him the strength to be consistent in that and give the listeners, his listeners and our listeners, the strength to reach out and to tell them what a difference that his show is making. That's always good to hear and keeps people going. And watch over us in this new year that we start out in 2024, and let everybody have safe travels, and just put your hand on anybody that you see that needs your help, and forgive us of our sins. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, man. You want to close this out?
Yeah, man. Hey, I want to touch one more thing before we close it out. I listened to the Tackle Talk podcast today. I don't know if you've listened to that yet. I think it just came out yesterday, maybe, or today. But it's the Berkeley episode where they all went to Houston. Have you listened to it?
I'm about
You're
halfway
shaking your
through.
head. Yes.
I'm about halfway through.
For everybody that's listening, if you love fishing, you got to listen to that podcast. He talks a lot about fish behavior. I won't spoil the rest of it for Cam, but it is one of the best fish behavior and scientific knowledge sharing 30-minute podcast that you will listen to. So you guys check that out. You know, Andrew Hayes does a great job on what he's doing. And this is a great episode. And I'm sure I know for a fact I saw other content creators post that they were there. I'm sure they're going to be coming out with some videos and stuff. And it sounds like Berkeley did a really good job of putting that on and having a bunch of folks down in Houston, Texas, and sharing what some of their scientists have been up to. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Please consider supporting those that support us. Jade's Jigs lead-free finesse tackle. Use promo code FNF10 at jadesjigs.com for 10% off. Save your outdoors. Stop losing your gear. Use promo code FNFP15 at saveyouroutdoors.com for 15% off. Omnia Fishing. Check out Premium, Premium Pro, and their Ambassador program. Use promo code FNF10 for 10% off at omniafishing.com. And if it's your first order, use promo code FNF15 for 15% instead. Mr. B Lure Company. High-quality handmade baits made right here in the U.S. MrBLureCompany.com. Use promo code faithnfishn for 15% off your first purchase. Get outdoors, pedal, and paddle. Check them out at the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or at shopgetoutdoors.com for all your paddling and cycling needs. And Nocwa Adventure Gear, lighting, power, and all the connectors at Nocwa.com. Please rate, review, subscribe on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.